What are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to purchasing real estate in Ghana?
Hmm.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah. People don't perform the requisite due diligence.
Mm,
So, yes. So, due diligence is essentially looking at the legal risks and understanding and identifying the legal risks that could affect your full enjoyment of the land. When you've hired a lawyer to do the checks for you, you can trust them to do those checks. But where you are buying the land from a lawyer, you need to ensure that you are hiring a separate
another
uh,
lawyer.
another lawyer
Right.
who can check and ensure that everything is okay.
Hey, everybody, listen, you have been waiting for this conversation. I know many of you are excited, interested, curious about the whole real estate process in Ghana. And I thought that it would be very important for you to be able to get information from someone who is well versed on this topic and really a wealth of knowledge as it pertains to real estate and corporate commercial law, all of that. I think that it's important for you to be able to get this knowledge before you make a decision in purchasing. So today we have Wilhemina Agyare, and she is an attorney, and she's going to walk us through these steps um, as it pertains to real estate in Ghana. How you doing, Wilhemina?
Hi Jay, how are you? Doing well.
Excellent, excellent. I want to thank you for joining us because there are people ready to buy. I'm telling you, every time I put a video up on YouTube or I post something on Instagram or Facebook, someone says, I want to buy property in Ghana. And I said, okay, it's not like buying property in America or the UK or Canada. So tell us a little bit about you know, I guess you and who you are, and then you can start walking us through the real estate process.
Okay, great. You've already said my name. My name is Wilhelmina Agyare. I'm a corporate and commercial as well as real estate and land lawyer here in Ghana. I've had the opportunity, I'll just speak specifically on real estate because that's what we're speaking about today. I've had the opportunity to work on, very big projects, very multi-million dollar projects, including a suite of apartments that are worth about $20 million that is being constructed at the moment. And I also work with individuals who are looking to acquire land as well. Just to give you a bit of background in terms of the work that I've done. So yes, I'm very passionate about educating people about the law in general, but specifically about real estate because I think a lot of people have had challenges when it comes to that.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to purchasing real estate in Ghana?
Hmm.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah. Um, so I think, uh, you know, coming back to thinking about land in general, people want a space to own that they can call their own and live in, because renting, especially in Ghana, can sometimes be a bit challenging. Working with landlords, ensuring that the property is properly maintained, and just having good relations sometimes with your landlord, it may not be guaranteed, and so people are interested in buying something that they can own themselves, especially because now we've built up a culture of people paying for rent in 2 years, up to 2 years in advance, and in certain properties it could be more. So you have the situation that people are paying significant amounts but aren't getting any equity or ownership in the property. So just to give you a background about why people would want to buy. Of course, I'm sure that your viewers already know why they personally would want to buy as well. So some of the mistakes. So what I see quite often is people not properly putting the terms of the acquisition into a contract. Basically, not writing down the terms of the contract.
Really?
Yes. You'll have people write things down, maybe just very informally, but very key terms in the contract have been left out, like payment terms. When should the payments be made? How do we transfer the property, and so on and so forth. I think it's also related to the fact that a lot of people buy land from people they feel they have a prior relationship with. So because of that, there's a lot of trust, and we have to look into thinking about this process as not just a transaction between friends, but it's a business transaction that needs to be seen as that and taken as seriously as that. So yeah, that's the first thing. So there's that. There's also the fact that people don't perform the requisite due diligence. So yes. So due diligence is essentially looking at the legal risks and understanding and identifying the legal risks that could affect your full enjoyment of the land. And I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to go into what a good due diligence of your land should look like. But people don't thoroughly go through that process. And again, because of maybe the relationships that they have with the owner, I've had clients come to me to tell me that they bought land from a lawyer, but they didn't perform due diligence when they purchased the land from the lawyer, because their assumption was, well, this person would do the right thing. Right. But to be honest, when you're putting such a significant amount of money into buying land, which you will, typically when you're buying land, you should be going through the processes to understand who you're buying from, and doing your own checks and not just relying on the checks that the sellers may have given you. Yes. So
and that's important, because a lot of times I think people put their guards down. While they have their guards up, I think on some levels, if they're coming from or going into what they consider a foreign country, they might put their guards down because they don't understand what they should be checking for. So they may say, okay, I'm hiring somebody and I'm paying them to do it. But then, like you said, you still want to go back and do your own checks even still.
And so so I'm talking about two different things. Of course, when you've hired a lawyer to do the checks for you, you can trust them to do those checks. But where you are buying the land from a lawyer, you need to ensure that you are hiring a separate
another lawyer,
right, who can check and ensure that everything is okay. So basically ensuring that you have representation that is looking out for your needs. I mean, it's not typical to buy from a lawyer. That was just an example, but you may be buying from a friend of yours. A lot of these transactions happen between maybe family, friends, or yes, family. And although you may have that trust built up, you need to go through that process, because I can't stress how many times you have heard of situations where it's been maybe a family friend who gave you the land, and it turns out it wasn't at what they thought. And in the end, the person had to relinquish the land because it wasn't properly bought.
So the bottom line is you want to hire somebody who has a fiduciary responsibility to look out for you at the end of the day.
Exactly,
That's it.
exactly, exactly, exactly. Um, and another mistake that people typically also do is not completing the registration process. A lot of people will start the process, and maybe because of things like cost cutting, they don't hire somebody to specifically work on the transaction. Maybe they're trying to get a friend to follow up on the registration of their land acquisition.
Hmm.
And with that, at some point they may lose interest and so on, and so they don't complete the land registration process. Again, you need to hire a lawyer to help you with this process, so that you know that you have somebody who's dedicated. I like the word that you use, who has a fiduciary responsibility to ensure you are getting what you're looking for, which is your land de-risked and in your name. So, just ensure that you have the right person following up on your registration and completing it, so that you have the confidence that it's in your name and it's completed.
Even if you're dealing with, say the chief is giving you some land, and because I know this is something that is popular in many African countries, in particular in Ghana. If, say, the chief gives you some land, should you go through that same process to make sure that the land is secured the proper way?
Of course. Again, you may have had conversations and with the chief, and built up that process of trust. But the law has a specific process for putting land in someone's name, giving you ownership in land. So although you may be dealing with a person of authority, if you haven't properly gone through that process, you are not respected or identified in law as the owner of the land.
Understood. Understood. Now, does someone actually own the land in Ghana? It's like, so are you actually buying the land or are you leasing the land?
So when it comes to this, the concept of land ownership here in Ghana, it is different from what is the norm in other countries. Um, so yes, we have four, I guess, persons or bodies or entities who can have outright ownership of land in Ghana. So you have individuals, although this is typically rare for individuals to have, yes, full ownership of the land and not leasing in some shape or form. You can have the stool chiefs, traditional rulers who own the land. You can have the state who owns the land, and families who own the land. So family groupings who jointly own pieces of land. So typically, most people are deriving their title in land or lease in land from one of these entities. It's become very rare for one to get, yes, full ownership, outright ownership of land. And what is typically given is a lease. I think it causes a lot of anxiety for people who aren't familiar with that sort of process. But the point I'll make is that this isn't unique to, maybe your transaction. If you're a foreigner coming in who wants to buy land and you've been given a lease, this is something that most people have. So it's not something to be, nervous about or concerned about. Just ensure that you are getting a significant amount of years on that lease. As a foreigner, you're given 50 years. If you are a Ghanaian, there aren't those limitations. It could be 99 years. Typically, a lot of people get 99 years. But I wouldn't be too worried or concerned about that point.
Right, and that because that's something I've heard a lot of people wonder because they say, "Well, I want to own it outright," and then what I remind them in America, you don't own it outright. I mean, they'll tell you that, but if you don't pay those property taxes every year, then you find out who owns it. I mean, it's
Right,
really it's and
right.
then in a lot of major metropolitan areas, they have the land lease. I know in Baltimore for sure. I've done some real estate deals in Baltimore, and you're leasing the land in Baltimore.
Mm,
So it's just kind of really understanding that aspect because I hear people have hesitation, but
right,
it's just kind of understanding, being able to compare.
right.
You might not be comparing apples to apples, but you're comparing similar scenarios. And when you're looking at it from the standpoint of property taxes, then it's like, oh, people get it. Now, do you pay property taxes in Ghana?
Yes, but it's just a peppercorn amount. It's not a significant amount. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. And that's the question, some people would also have.
Right,
The
right.
when it comes to what are some of the associated costs with purchasing property, land in Ghana?
So I think as a buyer, some of the costs that you would have to budget for are, of course, a lawyer. This is not me just trying to, I guess, promote myself, but this is more about, I think it's very important, especially when you're not familiar with the land system in Ghana, um, especially if you are not from Ghana. But to be honest, even people who have lived in Ghana, have lived and worked in Ghana, aren't fully capable of ensuring that the land transaction goes, as it should,
Hmm.
because it's a technical process, and it needs a trained eye to understand what is not the norm and what is, and somebody to advise you. So in short, just like you would in America or in England, you set aside money for closing costs for your legal representation. Ensure that you have that set aside here. The costs, of course, vary, and you'll need to look for recommendations for lawyers and compare pricing for the work that you need to get done. But it's really important. Another cost is a surveyor. So you'll have to get or it is highly recommended that you perform a site plan on the land that you're looking to buy, just to ensure that, again, you have someone who is working in your interest and can, basically ensure that what is on the side plan is what you've paid for, and they can corroborate between the documentation and then the side plan to make sure that everything is fine. Um,
I do have
another,
a question. I have a
yes, yeah,
question.
please.
If Now I've been told that what you would want to do in Ghana, I've heard this also in Sierra Leone as well, is that once you secure your land, you should put something on the land, a wall or something to say that you are there, because
Right.
otherwise you might find out that it's been sold from underneath you, or somebody might just come and do kind of like the squatters' rights thing and just kind of build on your land. And then, so have you heard that before?
Definitely, that's the first thing that typically you are the advice that you are typically given in Ghana, to ensure that you have a wall around it. Um, I although I'm all on the same page with that advice, I would also stress even more the legal aspect. I hear people, uh, come to me to say that I can only afford to, do one or the other, or I need to, but I'm trying to budget. Um, you need to budget for both of them, but
Hmm.
but ultimately you have to ensure that the legal aspect is secured first, and then of course the wall should definitely come as well. Because like you said, encroachers are people are watching for um land to grab, really.
I get it. They do it in America too.
Mm,
So
right.
and this
Yeah.
sounds very similar to what we deal with in the states. Now,
Right.
walk us down a little bit. what should be included in the due diligence process? Because when someone hears that term, they might not be familiar with some of the real estate terms, and they hear due diligence, and just as someone is listening, you when someone says you should do your due diligence and basically making sure that certain things are in order. So, what should be in the process, in the due diligence process in Ghana when it comes to purchasing real estate?
So before we move on, there was one more
Sure,
cost that I wanted to point out just briefly.
absolutely.
There's something called your stamp duty. That's essentially a tax that is put on documentation. And for land transactions, it varies between 0.25 to 1% of the transaction, which may sound small, but if your transaction is, let's say, 500,000 CDs, 1 million CDs, or let's say $100,000, 1% of that would be, I think, what, 10,000? My math is,
1% would be 1,000. 1% of 100,000 would be
yes, sorry,
1,000
my
USD.
math is very bad. But yes, it's a significant amount, a significant amount. That's why I stick to law.
I wasn't going to say a word.
Yeah. So yes, it will be a significant amount for you to have to pay out of pocket. So first, you need to determine who will be paying that amount. Is it the seller or the buyer? I mean, I think typically it will be the buyer, but again, you can negotiate this maybe in your the asking price and so on. But it's something to consider.
Okay. And that's good to know. I mean, because again, many people who are watching this right now are clueless to the process. But then, if you're familiar to the real estate process in whether it be the UK, United States, Canada, Mexico, wherever somebody might be watching from, it could be. I mean, because a lot of terms you're referring to are similar.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
have you do consider all of these additional costs, closing costs. When you use the term closing costs, I think everyone involved in real estate understood that instantly
Yes.
in Western countries. They're like, oh yeah, we know what closing costs mean. So
Right.
it's and I guess while someone is processing this, they can kind of say, okay, this what this means in Ghana. And this is
Yeah.
what this means in whatever country they're coming from, Germany,
Exactly.
Spain, wherever. They can say, all right, this is what it means. Or coming from Nigeria, because I know a lot of and we have a Nigerian audience that's coming on board, so they're looking to make a lot of purchases in Ghana as well, and other
Right.
countries. I mean, that with the on the continent, you're starting to see a lot of people are coming to Ghana. I guess Ghana just has it going on like that, but it's but again, the terms, everything that you're explaining to us is so important, and I think it's very valuable. So now,
The
with
due
that, go ahead.
diligence. The due
That's
diligence.
right. That's right. Break it down for us.
Right. So what should you take note of? Actually, I think not just with due diligence. I think I'll sort of give a whistle stop tour of what a land transaction should look like.
Got it. Okay.
Um, you know, of course, there's the negotiation stage, but I'll focus on more of the legal aspects of it. The negotiation stage is usually done between the buyer and the seller. Of course, the lawyer can give advice and possibly even speak on your behalf if you've given them the right to do so. But some people like to do it on their own and bring the lawyer in with the documentation. Again, I think it's important to have your lawyer help you through even at the beginning stages when you are maybe not sure. They can advise you on things you may not have noticed.
Mhm.
Um, about the land transaction, just because maybe they've dealt with so many already, they can tell what is the norm and what isn't the norm and kind of give you that context as well. So when it comes to documentation, it's typically a sale and purchase agreement or an indenture. It's also referred to as an indenture, and that is drafted to capture the basically the terms of the agreements that you have come to with the seller.
All right.
So of course you just need to ensure that again it's drafted by a lawyer, and includes everything that that is typical of sale and purchase agreements. So the payment terms, if you're planning on paying in an installment plan, what times the payments are due, whether or not there's a deposit that must be paid before the transaction is closed, things like that. So I'm sure once you will have that conversation with your lawyer, and they'll put all that information in there. Then we come to the actual due diligence process. So what is important to do is to ensure that the agreement that you draft has, I don't want to get technical, but it's sort of a condition precedent. So it's contingent on the fact or the results of the due diligence process.
Got it.
So, once you go through it and you're confident that the legal risks are minimal, then the transaction can move forward and the contract is binding, fully binding. But yes, the due diligence process, what does it look like? So typically that will basically be searches at different government agencies. So that will be searches at Lands Commission. Lands Commission is the agency tasked with administering land in Ghana.
Okay.
And they have different departments that you can do searches at. Just ensure that all the searches are done in the different departments. So there's Lands Commission, there's the courts as well, to ensure that there's no pending litigation involving the land. You may never know what is happening. You've searched at Lands Commission to find out who owns the land, but what if someone is disputing ownership of that land currently, and the result of that case could change who you'd have to buy the land from, for example. Yes. So there's that. There's also the use of the land. So the local assemblies, municipal assemblies, have given uses to, or basically planned out the city and ensure that certain areas are used for certain things, right? They call it land use. So you have to check with them to ensure that the use that you are looking to put the land to matches what they have zoned. Yes, exactly. So zoning, yes, zoned it for. So some of those checks, depending on what kind of land you've bought, whether you bought it from family, chief, traditional ruler, you'd have to also go and do your own, maybe even informal checks to understand who are the principal members of the family, and who are the principal the principal elders of the traditional, the chieftaincy, yes, the village. So there's that. So, and then there's also the informal checks that you'd have to do on the land. Look around, walk on the land, look around the land. Understand, is there anybody who's currently encroaching on the land or living on the land? Ask the neighbors, the people who live next to the land, about the land. What have they seen? What have they heard? You can get very valuable information from those checks.
So basically putting your eyes on the land and make sure that it's not, like you said, no one's encroaching on it. Maybe there are no sinkholes on it, or maybe there's no swamp land or some sort of waste, chemical waste to dump or something. I mean, it's basic. This is all a part of doing your due diligence to make sure that what you're getting in. Now, would you recommend the person doing this, or should they just hire someone and then just kind of let someone else do it?
Again, this should be part of the due diligence process that your lawyer is doing for you, to, again, ensure that it's being done with a technical eye, somebody who can identify what the true risks are and ensure that the proper authorities are being, they're contacting the proper authorities for those checks. I've seen certain searches being done, but they may do for example, lands commission only certain departments and leave out certain departments. And it leaves you blind on one side. And it's just because people don't know the full process. And to be honest, like I said, it's a technical process that you should be leaving to your lawyer to complete.
It sounds like a very technical process, but it also sounds like if you do it the right way, it can be very rewarding, because sometimes people hear, oh, we have to go through these steps, but they're not thinking about the big picture. Like, wow, if you do this the right way, then you can establish what it is that you're looking for.
Exactly. I mean, when you look at the, I guess, initial sacrifice is a harsh term, but what you have to put in the initial points
The process,
of the life,
the initial steps in the process and the
of the
journey.
land transaction, and you compare it to how long you're going to be on the land, it can't compare. Maybe you'd have to put in 3 months of some of these back and forth conversations and so on, but you're going to be there for at least 50 years. And you want that time on the land to be uninterrupted. The thing about land is it's unique in the sense that you may have lived on the land for 20 years, and then all of a sudden somebody has a claim against your ownership 20 years down the line, or you've given the land you've willed it to your kids, you are gone, they have it now, and they have to fight a litigation issue that they have no idea about because due diligence wasn't properly done at the beginning and documentation wasn't properly done. I mean, I've had both instances where, yes, the original owner is gone, but their children are having to spend money in litigation to clear the ownership of the land, So just invest that small amount of time and money in the beginning and ensure that you are safe for the duration of the lease.
What happens after the 50 years? So when the lease expires, then what happens? Can you renew the lease? You give up the land? What happens?
So you can renew the lease. I mean, what people typically will try and do is negotiate some of that at the time of the initial transaction. You can put in that, a renewal clause, really, where you are basically ensuring that the terms of renewal are put into the initial transaction, and you all are aware of what will happen in the long run. So I would definitely encourage, where possible, that people negotiate a renewal clause into their contracts.
That sounds to be very wise.
Yeah.
And that's good to know, because again, sometimes people are wondering, now, what does a typical renewal look like on a lease? Let's say we have a lease that goes we get the property for, I won't scare everybody, I'll say 100,000 CDs. Let's say 100,000 CDs, and that's the term for 50 years. What would the renewal typically look like? I mean, I guess you negotiate it based upon whatever you can do, but is there like a standard renewal?
Yes, and I think this definitely differs depending on who the seller is. For example, the government, it's a pretty straightforward process when you are buying from the government, or what we call state land, because they have their own formulas set aside, and it's pretty clear what that renewal payment will be, and it's pretty straightforward. You will get your renewal once you've met all the requirements of the lease. You've been a good lessee, and everything is fine. Working with chiefs and families, it can differ, and I don't want to give specifics on that because they really can differ.
Sure.
So I think it's important that, again, you have some of those conversations and understand what you are looking for and what they're able to offer as well. But it's definitely a good point to try and negotiate some of your renewal clauses on the front end.
Can you sell the property, or I guess you're selling the lease?
Yes, you are. You are free to sell it. It's not a lease or a tenancy. Maybe that's where people have confusion. It's not like when you rent your apartment like in New York, you have an apartment and you're there for maybe a year and you move out and so on, and it comes with certain stipulations that you can't sell it and so on. You may have to inform your landlord that this is what is happening, and certain agreements will require that consent. And to be honest, it's not that there will usually be a caveat that says that that consent should not be unreasonably withheld, that you are able to transfer your land.
Okay.
But yes, it's not, again, because it's so typical, or it's the norm for us here to transfer land that is owned through a lease. It is not typical for it to be, held back by
Understood.
some of
Okay.
these things.
Okay. Now I have one final question for you. I think that would be good. Um, do they have buyers markets and sellers markets in Ghana? Because in different countries you have these markets where, hey, this is a seller's market, and I guess that means that the prices are going higher. When a buyer's market, the prices are lower. So do they have those fluctuations in Ghana?
Um, I think the real estate market in Ghana is not as dynamic, I would say, as other markets. And I think it comes down to some of the unique points of our economy and how we basically hold on to wealth. I think for a lot of Ghanaians, land is an investment, and it's one of the more sure ways of holding money because of our currency depreciation.
Okay.
So because of that, there is some reluctancy to change pricing because of that investment piece. It's a sort of a store of wealth, for generational wealth. For example, people buy land not just for themselves; they're buying land for their kids, to pass on to their kids and so on. So I would say, yeah, because of that, it's quite fraught. So I would say it's a seller's market, and you have to come in kind of seeing that, but it doesn't necessarily hinder you from negotiating and trying to, because there has been a slowdown in transactions just because of course, the pandemic, and if you come in with the right price, you should be able to get what you're looking for. But generally, I would say it's a seller's market.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of sense that vibe too.
Yeah.
The now, okay, I said that I had one last. Then another question popped into my mind because I know when a lot of Westerners come, they come with a Western approach to real estate, and
Hmm.
they're wondering financing. They're thinking, okay, I can run down to the local bank here in Ghana if they go and they say, well, can I go just fill out a loan? And how does that typically work in Ghana?
um I won't speak to the bank processes just because I don't work on that side of it. But what I do know um is that the interest rates can be, if you're coming from a context that is not Ghana, they're definitely higher than what some people may be used to coming from America and the UK. And they're also pegged to the dollar. You can get CD rates, but it does mean that your rates will be variable. But if you do want a more fixed rate, it may be pegged to the dollar, which again, because of the currency risk here in Ghana, it's something that you really need to consider. Just because it means in real terms you may be paying more in CDs in the long run because it's pegged to the dollar. What I have heard, depending on what kind of project you want to come and do, I don't want to just think about residential because people may be looking to do commercial projects as well.
Sure.
Um, you, I've heard people sort of negotiate and bring mortgages from other countries, bring that money to Ghana to start projects, real estate projects.
So I guess someone could, because they may say, well, how did they bring it? Like basically, they could take equity out of a property in that they might own in another country.
Well, I guess that's more in the real estate, the residential aspects. But then when you're looking at commercial properties, you could present to your bank the prospect of investing in a commercial property in Ghana. This is usually large projects. This is
Got
not,
it. Okay, I see. I
yes,
see.
this is
I
not,
see.
I'm not talking about maybe a house or anything. These are larger projects, you know, typically in the millions
Yes.
that I'm speaking about. But again, you know, some people may be interested in larger commercial transactions. And because of that, yes, you may be able to present a business case for investing, yeah, outside of the country.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I have gained an education through this conversation because there's things I didn't realize, and that's why I said we were talking, and I said, you know what? What about this? What about that? And I, well, one, I will tell you this: when I'm ready to make that next purchase, as far as land is concerned, you will be the person that I give the phone call to or the WhatsApp, the WhatsApp message. I'll send the WhatsApp
Awesome,
message to
awesome,
because you
awesome,
clearly know what you're talking about, and
awesome.
it's refreshing because for many of us who are coming and we want to bring our Western dollars or
Mm,
euros or pounds or whatever, whatever we're bringing, we want to bring them and invest, but we also don't want to be taken advantage of. And so
right,
that's why I believe conversations like this are so important and having a clear understanding so we can have a checklist and we can walk it down in our minds and say, okay, when we when we make a an offer or we seek counsel for our different investments, real estate investments, to be able to have again this knowledge when we're walking in the door. So now tell everybody one, well, how they can reach you, but then any final thoughts that you might have as you know to give to people as they're considering their next moves.
so um well, I'll just give my email for people to reach me at. So you can reach me at contact at Agyare. So Agyare is spelled AGYARE.com. And hopefully Jay will put my email.
Yes, it'll
Yeah,
be all.
in
Yep,
the
you'll have
notes.
all of it right there.
Great. Final thoughts. Again, if there's anything you got from this talk, it's, I hope it is that you connect with somebody who is technically sound when it comes to legal land transactions, because it will save you a lot of money, time, headache, pain in the long run. I'm sure Jay has heard all the stories about, you know, the struggles certain people have had just because they didn't go through the right processes. And once you have somebody holding your hand, it's straightforward. It's pretty straightforward, and you know, there's no worry as long as you have that person guiding you.
Excellent. And what I want everyone to do in the comments, if you have any questions, please feel free to put your questions in the comments. And Wilhelmina, she will, I'm sure she'll be monitoring to make sure to see if there are any questions that she will be able to answer for you. But even more importantly, what I want you to do is to reach out to her and all of her contact information is being posted below, because maybe there was a question that she didn't answer that you might have. And another thing that we're looking to do here with Maximum Impact is making sure that we connect you with people who can help you accomplish what you're looking to do in Ghana, or what or different parts of the continent. So that's why I believe conversations like this are so important, and we want to bring this value to you. And that's what bridging the gap is all about. That's what you see us doing. And so, Wilhelmina, I want to thank you for, again, I believe this is the first step for many people. And I also believe as this conversation continues to circulate, and I'm hoping everyone will share it, first of all, obviously, and let people know. But this is how we bridge the gap, through information, through knowledge. And by doing that, you can save yourself headache, money, and then if you save the money, you save the headache. So all of that
Yeah,
comes into play. So again, we've been talking to Wilhelmina Agyare, and she is a real estate attorney. She's also into corporate
and commercial.
corporate and commercial. And so, again, you might have another question, again, that we didn't cover. So make sure you reach out to her. Again, Wilhelmina, thank you for joining me. I know you're moving around and getting ready to go fly around the world again. So I want to thank you, and keep me posted on any projects or any information that you think would be beneficial to our audience.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you for having me. This was a great conversation.
Open up your eyes and see all the fun and mystery. Take an African adventure with Darren and Destiny. From the mountains to the shore, so many things to explore. Take an African adventure with Darren and Destiny.
The Adventures of Darren and Destiny. And Darren and Destiny are twin brother and sister, and you go on their adventures throughout the African diaspora, meaning so African diaspora destinations, primarily focused in Africa, but we go to South America, we're going to go to the Caribbean. Their first book is going to take you to Ghana, and then we're going to go on a safari, and from there we're going to go to Ethiopia, and then we go to Salvador, Brazil. And what the goal is to be able to inspire curiosity in the continent of Africa, in our children from a very young age, and to really tell a more accurate story. Most of our children are exposed to negative images, late night infomercials about how bad things are, everybody's sick, everybody's poor, everyone's uneducated, but that's simply not true. So what Darren and Destiny and their family do is they go to different African destinations. They're learning about these different places. You're beginning to see positive images, but still telling the truth. I mean, that's the important thing, to tell the truth about some of the things that have occurred. But it's all done on a children's level, so they begin to understand it. And it begins to pique their curiosity. They begin to learn more. And hopefully one day they will want to explore and visit the continent of Africa and its many countries. There's just so much that Darren and Destiny are able to do, and as they're doing it, it's like they begin to open the minds of a new generation, and they don't get bombarded and indoctrinated with negativity. They're actually able to see positivity and inspiring images and messages about the African diaspora, as well as those who are still indigenous to the continent of Africa, and they begin to learn more and just see things differently. So I'm excited about introducing the Adventures of Darren and Destiny.